the Premier League games that are coming up this weekend. As you know, this is the game week 31, and interestingly, this is going to be the last game week before the international break. So after this weekend, there is basically no other game in the Premier League, and even in the top five leagues, and basically the leagues all over the world until the international break is over. So for this game week, one thing we know about international break and the games that come before international break is that every team wants to win. Every fan wants their club to be on the winning side. And I myself, I know what it feels like to lose a game going into the international break. You just can't stop thinking about that loss. And you have to deal with the loss for the next maybe 2 weeks until the international break is over. So we'll be looking into the Premier League games. Just a very quick preview of the Premier League games we will see this weekend before we head into the international break. And I'm starting with the game between Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur. You may be thinking, what is he saying? Yes, because that isn't even a Premier League game. Arsenal and Manchester City, they have what is easily the biggest game of this weekend, and that's going to be a super Sunday game between the two sides. It is going to be a game in Wembley, and of course it isn't a Premier League game. Instead, it will be a cup final. That's the EFL Cup, or if you like, we can call it the Carabao Cup final. That surely is a very big opportunity for either of those sides to win their first trophy of the season. So there is so much on the line. It is a game that has so much jeopardy. None of those teams can afford to mess it up. Every single team involved surely have to put everything on the line to get the win. Currently, based on recent form, you could easily say that Arsenal, they have been in solid form, not just in recent games or in recent weeks or even recent months. No, Arsenal has been in fine form for the most part of this season. Throughout this season, Arsenal has been in solid form, and they are going to be up against a Manchester City side that just faced an embarrassing knockout against Real Madrid. Across both legs, they couldn't get a win against Real Madrid, and currently they are knocked out of the Champions League. And one thing we always say about Manchester City is that this could easily be the last season Pep Guardiola would be spending with them. If this is going to be the last season he will spend with them, he would surely want to win something before he closes chapter in Manchester City. And currently, the Premier League is running away from them because Arsenal has 9 points advantage against Man City in the Premier League. Now, if you talk about the Champions League, they are already knocked out of the Champions League, which surely isn't a good look for Man City or Pep Guardiola. And outside these two competitions, Man City, they are still in the FA Cup, so they have a chance there. But most importantly, they have a chance that is already at hand, because in that FA Cup, their next game is going to be against Liverpool. And I mean, Liverpool have also not been consistent this season. But when everything matters most, they know it is not a sure win for them. And that is why they have to start with what comes immediately, which is that Sunday fixture between Arsenal and Manchester City. Who is going to win this one? I mean, we are all looking forward to it. In just 2 days' time, on Sunday, we'll get to watch the game. We'll get to know who will be the champions regarding the EFL Cup, who is going to pick up the first trophy. I think we'll still look into this game further as the game time gets closer. But just have it in mind that that is surely a game that's involving both teams. It means that none of those teams would be playing in the Premier League this weekend. So in the Premier League games this weekend, you are not going to see Arsenal, you are not going to see Manchester City, but both sides would surely be playing in the cup final. And from there, let's now move into the games that are happening for sure in the Premier League. Scott, you are welcome. let's move into those games that are surely happening in the Premier League. And I will start from the last of them all. That will be the game between, that's on Sunday. On Sunday, we have a game between Tottenham Hotspur and Nottingham Forest. I mean, both of these teams, currently, I think both of them are just almost on the same place on the table. Tottenham Hotspur is on 16th position. Nottingham Forest are on the 17th position. So both of them are seriously fighting a relegation battle. I don't think any of them wants to be relegated, but just because you don't want to be relegated doesn't mean you can't get relegated, and that is where the serious grind comes in. Both of these sides, will be seeing them play on Sunday. Everything is going to be on the line for this game. They know they can't afford to mess it up, because any mess up here increases their chance of being forced into relegation. Now, I don't think Tottenham Hotspur wants to be relegated. I also don't think Nottingham Forest wants to be relegated. So, who is going to win this one? How are they going to be performing? Of course, currently we know that both of those teams also played in midweek. Tottenham Hotspur played in the Champions League this week, and it was a very embarrassing result for them. They got knocked out of the Champions League by Atletico Madrid in a very embarrassing performance, both in their first and second leg of the game. But it is important to note that while Tottenham Hotspur haven't been performing really well this year in particular, their last two games have not been the worst of them all. Remember, their last two games, last week, they played against Liverpool, and everybody expected it to be a battering for them. Everybody expected Liverpool to easily get the win. But that wasn't what happened. That was not the case at all, because Tottenham Hotspur, they fought, they even outperformed Liverpool in the game. And by the end of the day, they were able to pick up 1 point, a very valuable point. So from that game, Tottenham Hotspur also faced Atletico Madrid in the second leg this midweek. While they needed 3 goals to increase their chances of qualifying, they didn't get to score those 3 goals without conceding, and that's their problem. Yes, they got to score 3 goals, but they also conceded 2. But the bright side for them is that at least they put up a fight, because they were able to get a win in that particular game. Yeah, you are welcome. Good afternoon, Sophia. So Tottenham Hotspur were able to get a very important win, and now after those 2 uninspiring performances, or perhaps 2 fairly decent performances from Tottenham, they are back in the Premier League, and this is a very big and important game for them. Their fans would be looking forward to how this Tottenham Hotspur would fight against Nottingham Forest. Now, I'm not sure if we can really have high hope in this game, but one thing is for sure: a draw is not a good result for any of them. Yes, because both of them are basically fighting the same thing. Both of them are seriously fighting this relegation. So picking up a draw is not even beneficial to any of them. But Tottenham Hotspur, based on the fact that a couple of their players are returning back from injury, now the players they already have seems to be finding ways to finally fight for the manager. Their manager, Igo Tudor, who many people personally don't like. A lot of Tottenham Hotspur fans don't like him, and I won't even blame them for not liking him, because when you are in a relegation battle, Igo Thiago isn't the ideal man to give the job, and that is why it is not a surprise that his performance ever since he took over has been very poor. But for a game like this, getting the win would be very, very important for Tottenham Hotspur. So moving on from the Tottenham Hotspur game, we have another game between Aston Villa and West Ham United. Aston Villa currently are seriously fighting a top 4 battle. They want to qualify for Champions League next season. Remember, they were also in this fight last season, and it was until the final game day of the season that they failed to seal a qualification. We are about to see it again this season. And they made things too hard for themselves because at some point this season, in fact, up till until January, Aston Villa were sitting comfortably in the second or third position. In fact, at some point in January, people were saying, I think they will challenge for the title. But no, they started falling off and their fall off became very massive. The moment they started falling off, there was basically no looking back. And that is why they have a whole lot of issues to deal with at this very moment. Nonetheless, a game like this, a game between Aston Villa and West Ham United, Aston Villa can't afford to mess it up. But which team can really afford to mess up games at this point in the season? Because West Ham also have a serious dog in the fight. They want to make sure they avoid relegation, and that is why this is a game that you are not sure of what to expect. But let's see who have the highest hunger in this game. Now, bear in mind that Aston Villa also played European competition yesterday, so they played in the Europa League this midweek, and of course they were able to get the win, so they've qualified for the next round. And just before the international break, they need a win here. So from Aston Villa's game, let's go over to the next game, which is Newcastle and Sunderland. Very, very interesting derby game. Both sides, they've had their moments this season. Newcastle they were not as consistent as many people expected them to be. Remember, in the summer, they made a very big profit from the sale of Alexander Isak. So the profit they made from him, they used him to get a few more addition. Ian Wissa is someone they bought, but Wissa fell to injury since he came on board, and they've not been able to get value for their money on the Wissa signing. Now, if you move away from Wissa, the same thing could be said with Walter Mada. He actually had a very good start, but halfway through the season, he fell off and he has been struggling to the point where we are now getting information that he would be open for a move back to Germany. That's in the German Bundesliga. Probably thinking of a move to Bayern Munich if they would have him. So that was part of the struggle we've seen with clubs like Newcastle. And just recently in the midweek, they got completely dominated by Barcelona in a knockout game that they ended up conceding 7 goals while only scoring 2. It wasn't a good look at all. It just wasn't a good look for them. But in this game, they would try to have a bounce back against Sunderland. Sunderland of the season was a very amazing one for them. Up until Granit Xhaka picked up one particular injury, they were beginning to see some inconsistency in their game. But regardless of how this season ends for them, we are very sure that they are not facing a relegation battle, and they should just be proud of themselves for that, because it is not very often you see a team come from relegation zone, come from the championship, and challenge like we saw Sunderland challenge in the Premier League. So that game between the both sides is one to look out for. We also have a game between Leeds United and Brentford. I don't know if anyone will be paying attention to that game. So let's just quickly go over to the game between Everton and Chelsea. Chelsea, what is wrong? What is going wrong with Chelsea? Like, where did it just go wrong for them? Because the last couple of games has been very poor for Chelsea, and the type of embarrassment they faced against PSG is one that would live with them, is a shameful one to deal with for the rest of their history. Getting slapped up both home and away by PSG is surely not a good look. Not for Chelsea. Chelsea is too big a club to have to deal with that. But they are in a situation where so many things are just not working well for them. Things are going so wrong for Chelsea. And this game between them and Everton, just before the international break, could have a whole lot of twist in it, because Everton at home this season, Everton has been trying. I mean, a win for Everton will surely bring them closer to the top 5. Although I don't think Everton would be challenging for European competition. They won't even be fighting for that spot, but they would surely want to get closer. Chelsea, on the other hand, can't afford to mess this up because they are losing their spot in that top 4, top 5 race. If they lose their spot, that means you would have to deal with Chelsea not being in the Champions League next season. I don't think they are ready for it, and that is why this surely is a game that they must fight for, a game they must push to win. And from there we'll go over to the next game, which is basically a game between Fulham and Burnley. Fulham and Burnley. Yeah. Are you going to be watching this game? I think everything is going to work in favor of Fulham for this game because all their players are beginning to get back in fine form. In fact, they've all been in decent form this season, and that is why during AFCON, when they lost a couple of their players due to AFCON, many of us thought, would they be able to cope? But no, they were still able to cope. But currently, all of those players are fully fit, they are fully firing, and this is basically their last game before international break. So for this game, if there is anyone you want to watch out for, just look forward to Harry Wilson and Alex Iwobi. These two guys, just look forward to them. I think they are going to have an amazing game against Burnley. And from there henceforth, we'll move over to the other game, which is basically a big game between Brighton and Liverpool. We saw Liverpool completely surprised everyone this midweek when they had a dominant display against Galatasaray in the Champions League. Despite walking into the second leg of the game with 1 goal disadvantage, they stepped into the game. They completely outplayed them from beginning till end. And by the end of the day, they were able to score 4 goals. Now, the 4 goals could be more. It should have been more, but you will take it. You will take it all day. They scored 4 goals without conceding anything. In fact, Alisson basically didn't have anything to do against Galatasaray. And we've seen several moments where Liverpool come into a game, they have an amazing performance, and then their next game, they just play as if they've never played football before. This particular one against Brighton is one to look forward to. It's going to be the early kickoff game on Saturday, tomorrow, and we are not sure of what to expect. Plus, the fact that Mohamed Salah is already confirmed to be injured ahead of this game, so he's not going to be there. And we're also hearing that he won't be available for Egypt during this international break. Nonetheless, let's see what Liverpool will bring to the table. And from there, we'll move over to the last game. Interestingly, while this is the last game on our list, it is also the first game that will be coming up this game week. And that is the game between Bournemouth and Manchester United. It's coming on this Friday night football. We've seen a whole lot of Friday night football and Monday night football for Man United this season. And this happens to be one of those. Of course, I mean, every game is worth winning, but considering where Man United are right now in the table, they are currently sitting at a spot where they need to fight to win to qualify in the top 4 or top 5 of the Premier League, and they are currently sitting around the 3rd position on the league table. So a win against Bournemouth would surely push them so much higher and widen the gap between them and those in the 4th, 5th, and 6th position. And that is why this has to be a game that they just can't afford to mess up. Another reason why they really need a win here is that after this game, once they come back from international break, all the other games they have are games that are so much harder than this. So comparatively, this is going to be one of the easiest game they should have between now and the end of the season. And a game like this, you just can't afford to mess it up, especially after getting a whole week of rest. So this is it. That's all the games we have in the Premier League this weekend. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. I covered everything, including the cup final that we'll be seeing between Manchester City and Arsenal. And with that, I think we've come to the end of this stream.